Hello my friends and welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. On this channel we learn alcohol, ink, and watercolor together. Today we're going to paint some very fun and very simple splatter flowers, as I call them. And all we're doing is putting down about 2 drops of the ink straight from the bottle. My airbrush is set at 40 psi and I'm holding it almost straight up and down, and I'm just releasing, or rather pressing the trigger and pushing the ink outward to create these flower shapes. And I call them splatter flowers because you can see that the ink splatters all over the paper, and that's nice because it creates a really fun background for the painting. Now, if you make sure you're working in an area that you don't mind getting some ink all over the place, you can see it's all over my desk, but it easily cleans off with some alcohol because I do cover my desk with removable contact paper. So I don't mind getting ink all over the place. And don't wear anything that you're especially fond of. So you can see now I'm adding some smaller flowers, and I create the smaller flowers by only using 1 drop of the alcohol ink. So some of them are 3 drops, anywhere between 1 to 3 drops to create different sizes. Now that I'm satisfied with the amount of flowers that I've created, I'm going to use my dry palette to paint a vase. Now, if you don't have a dry palette, you can simply use a disposable paintbrush. Don't use good paintbrushes for this because alcohol and the alcohol inks will ruin your brushes. So inexpensive disposable brushes is the way to go. And if you don't, as I mentioned, if you don't have a dry palette, you can simply put a couple of drops of the ink straight from the bottle onto your your brush, and just paint in your vase. And I'll be sure to link the video which explains what a dry palette is, why you would want to use one, and how to create one in the comment section below in case you've never used one and you would like to know more about it. So you can see that I painted in my vase. I just made a simple rectangular shaped vase, but you can do any shape you like, and of course any color you like. And now I'm using my angled brush to create some leaves. I'm going to alternate between the shades of green, but I'm switching over to a round brush because I find it easier to use. I love using the angled brush with watercolor, but not so much with alcohol ink. I think that the round brush is easier. And you can see that my leaves are not perfect. They just resemble a leaf. And that will all come together in the end, because what we're going to do after we've used all our alcohol ink to paint in our leaves and our flowers, we're going to use fine liners to outline these shapes and clean things up a little bit, give it a little bit more detail. Now this is supposed to be a loose, fun, whimsical painting. So don't stress out over anything being perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be fun. So now I'm using the color rust to paint in some smaller leaves, and I'm covering up the rim of my vase because I wasn't able to get in between those petals to add the blue. So I kind of mask it by using a few little leaves cascading over the rim. And now I'm just going to fill in here and there wherever I think I have an empty space and it looks like it needs something. I'll add a couple of these little leaves. While you watch me paint these little leaves, I'll remind you that all the products used are listed in the description box. Just click on the link where it reads products used in this video, and it will take you straight to my Amazon store. And there you'll find all the products used for this video as well as other videos. Now, as an Amazon associate, I do receive a small commission on any products purchased using my links, but that is at no extra charge to you. So thank you to those of you who do make purchases with my links. It's a really nice way to show your support for my channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Okay, so now we're working on the centers of the flowers. I have a ton of these Posca pens, so that's what I decided to use. But if you don't have Posca pens, you can use alcohol ink markers, you can use snow cap and a micro brush. You can also use acrylic paint and a dotting tool. Even the dimensional paints would look really pretty on this. You can use the fine liners, whatever you have within reach, use that. I just happen to have a ton of these Posca pens and they were right behind me, so that's what I decided to grab. And you can see that I'm keeping these centers pretty simple. I'm just dotting around the center and alternating the colors. I have so many of these that I was able to do just about every center in a different color. And if you are using Posca pens, make sure that you shake them before you use them, which is something I forget to do all the time, because if you don't, what happens is the paint separates in the pen, so you have to shake it to mix it, to blend it together. Otherwise the paint comes out very watery and you don't get the full opacity of the color. All right, so now that we have our centers done, I'm using these fine liners. They're by 2 hands, and I find that these markers work great on regular paper for line drawing, which I love to use them for that. However, I find that they don't work as well on photo paper. But my Micron pens were upstairs, and I'm in the process of doing laundry, and I have been up and down those stairs so many times already that I didn't want to go upstairs and get them. So I'm using these. And you can see here that I'm holding the pen very far up as opposed to using it, rather holding it close to the nib. And the reason I do that is because holding it further up the pen doesn't give me as much control. And for this particular painting, I want very wobbly, skippy, sketchy little lines. I'm not looking for perfection here. If I hold the pen closer to the nib, I'm able to get perfectly straight lines, and they're not as wobbly and whimsical as the rest of the painting. So if you're looking for that effect as well, hold your pen further up. Same thing with a paintbrush. The further up you hold the paintbrush, the less control you have. And if you've been watching my recent videos, I'm trying to work on loosening up my watercolor, and I keep trying to remind myself to hold the brush further up. But again, the same goes for the pen. So I am simply outlining these shapes. I'm not trying to stay within the lines or within the colors. I'm just creating these very loose lines and even creating a couple of little veins for the leaves just to create a little bit more detail and interest. So for those of you who don't know, we have a Facebook group. It's called Vivo Vintage Design Tutorials. And I created that group because I had so many questions and so many people tagging me on paintings that they learned from my channel. So I wanted to create one place where my followers and my subscribers could post their versions of the paintings and techniques learned on this channel. And it's been so much fun. I love seeing your work. And I'm very active in the group. We have a fantastic group of members that are just so incredibly sweet, so talented, and so helpful. So if you're ever struggling with a project or painting, a technique, you can always reach out to not just me, but our wonderful members there for some help. And I hope that you consider joining. It's a really fun group, and I'm very proud of it. So now I decided to use the fine liner, and I am simply going to outline these flowers, again, very loosely. Now, you can get as carried away with detail in this painting as you like. I chose to keep it simple because I wanted to show you the basics, and then you can embellish any way you like, but you can use the dimensional paints or the Posca pens to create more detail on the vase or to define the petals of the flowers a little bit more. You can do so much with this. It's such a fun little painting, and I did speed this up a little bit, I think by 2, but it only took me less than a half hour to create this painting. It's a very stress-free, fun painting to create, and in the end you have something really cute. I find that sometimes if I overthink things, I get too hung up on the details, and it's not as enjoyable. Sometimes I need to do a painting like this just to relax. And I think that this would be really adorable if you use just 1 drop of ink and you make a smaller painting and you make smaller flowers. You can create a really cute card. So you can see I'm just simply outlining these flowers, reminding myself to hold the pen closer to the top than to the bottom. Not trying to be perfect about it, but it creates some nice detail. Make sure to stick around until the end of the video because I'll post pictures of the finished painting. Now I am using the fine liner to create just a little bit more detail in the center of the flower. So I'm just outlining half of the circles or dots that I created in the centers. And that just adds a little bit of detail. If I try this again, I'm definitely going to use the dimensional paints to create the centers for these flowers and maybe add some more detail to the vase using the dimensional paints. I think that would be a lot of fun. Well, we are near the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you give it a try, and if you do, I would love to see how you do, so share your versions of this painting with me on our Facebook group. And if you have any questions about any of the techniques or products you've seen used on this video, please let me know in the comments. I will always get back to you. And I decided that I wanted to add a few more leaves. I just took some alcohol ink markers and swiped across the paper to create some longer leaves, and I created that little squiggly thing on the side there, which I didn't like, but now I'm stuck with it. And then I just outlined it again with the fine liner, just to fill in the spaces and add a little bit more detail. And you can just do this with a paintbrush and some alcohol ink. You don't have to have alcohol ink markers. Well, I'm really happy with the way this turned out. It was a fun little painting, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.